Hi, welcome back to Faith Series once again. This week we will be learning about Daniel. Daniel was an exile in Babylon. He was taken from Judah by King Nebuchadnezzar. In many ways, Daniel and Joseph were similar in their character. They both were taken to foreign land forcefully, and in spite of difficult conditions, they both were faithful. They both had the ability to interpret dreams. Because of that, they were appointed as high officials in those countries. In Daniel chapter 6 verse 4, Bible says his colleagues were trying to find fault in him and they were unable to do so because he was trustworthy, he was not corrupted, and he was not negligent as well. Later, they decided to plot against him to trap him. We will look into Daniel chapter 6 verse 5 to 9. Finally, these men said, "We will never find any basis for charges against this man Daniel unless it has something to do with the law of his God." So, these administrators and satraps went as a group to the king and said, "May King Darius live forever." The royal administrators, prefects, satraps, advisors, and governors have all agreed that the king should issue an edict and enforce the decree that anyone who prays to any god or human being during the next 30 days except to you, your majesty, shall be thrown into lion's den. Now, your majesty, issue the decree and put it in writing so that it cannot be altered, in accordance with the law of Medes and Persians, which cannot be repealed. So King Darius put the decree in writing. Daniel's enemies knew that he wouldn't pray to anybody other than the living God. So they approached the king and made the king make a decree so that anybody who prays to anybody else other than the king will be thrown into lion's den. Daniel was a man of prayer. After knowing about the decree, Daniel went ahead and prayed in his room. He kept his windows open towards Jerusalem. And of course, as they planned, his enemies saw this and went and reported this to the king. When the king came to know that Daniel has to be thrown into lion's den, he was very much distressed. In chapter 6 verse 14 says, the king was distressed. He tried his best to save Daniel. But because the decree was in writing, he could not go against his own decree, and he had to at last give orders for Daniel to be thrown into lion's den. As per the king's orders, Daniel was thrown into lion's den. When Daniel was being thrown into lion's den, the king told Daniel, "May your God rescue you." The king really wanted Daniel to be safe. The king went home. Bible says in verse 18 that king spent time without eating and any entertainment, and he couldn't sleep. Later on, king went back to the den and he called out to Daniel, "Daniel, did your God rescue you?" We'll read chapter 6 verse 22 to 23. It says, "My God sent his angel and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me because I was found innocent in his sight. Nor have I ever done any wrong before you, your majesty." The king was overjoyed and gave orders to lift Daniel out of the den. And when Daniel was lifted from the den, no wound was found on him because he had trusted in God. Now here we see Daniel's response. He told the king, "My God sent angels and that angel shut the mouths of the lions." That's what faith can do to us. When we have faith in God, God can take us out of trouble. And that's the same thing what happened to Daniel. God saved him because he trusted in God. Few things we can learn from Daniel today. Daniel was trustworthy and not corrupt in his work. he had a great relationship with his boss. We see the king was so distressed to know that he had to give orders for Daniel to be thrown into lion's den. That shows the close relationship with Daniel and the king. He was a man of prayer. We see him in chapter 6 verse 10 that he is praying to God 3 times a day. Let us think about our lives today. How is our relationship with our boss? How are we in our workplace? Are we trustworthy? How is our prayer times? Are we praying to God on a daily basis? How is our faith in God? How faithful are we today? Let us learn these lessons from Daniel. Next week, we will be learning about Hosea. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you.